I want to talk about Rings of Power.
Oh, really?
So tomorrow is the last episode. So
Thank
I guess I
God.
could wait until the last episode. But I just want to, I mean, since we last spoke, spoilers, the Southlands have turned into Mordor.
Oh, didn't you love that font change?
They thought that was really pimp, didn't they?
Somebody, I can't believe that made it past like 100 people and nobody thought it was stupid.
No, I think they all thought it was fucking tits. I think they thought like, yeah. Like
yeah, Mountain, yeah.
It's Mountain Doom.
Yeah.
But, you know, so again, I don't think anybody's watching this show.
No, I don't think so. It's
Whoever
bad.
is likes it or likes it enough.
Yeah.
So you're not hearing the critiques all that much anymore. But there was a Hollywood Reporter article with interviewing J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay, the showrunners. Now, remember, these are the guys who reached out to Peter Jackson and said, do you want to be involved with this thing? He said, I don't know. Show me the scripts. I'd like to see the scripts. And they never sent him the scripts.
Yeah. Well, they're former Bad Robot employees.
Is that true?
They worked on some Star Trek. And then J.J. Abrams called Amazon to get them the job, basically. Yeah.
Who are the dipshits who hired them?
I don't know. They must have. Well, I think even in one of those articles, they said that they talk like a Saul Goodman. So I think they're very good, like car salesman type people.
Well, all right. Let's go into it. So, Hollywood Reporter prints this farce of a fucking article. It's called "The Rings of Power Writers React to 5 Fan Criticisms of Their Show." Now, before I start, I'm just going to establish that if you like this show, I'm very proud of you. But I think most people don't really, at least can admit, like, it's not very good. Like, this show really needed to kick ass to justify its existence, and it doesn't come anywhere close to
You can't have Elrond trying to mine Mithril for 7 episodes, and then even in the 7th episode, he's like told, no, go away.
I mean, come on. This is what I showed up for. I keep saying it's a you know, you said Bad Robot, J.J. Abrams. You know, for those who, I'm sure, hopefully everybody's familiar, but if you're not, J.J. Abrams has this storytelling theory called Mystery Box, where earlier I said, like, a good story advances the plot with every scene and has well-defined characters, and you know their desires, and you know what looks like success to them, what looks like failure, and you know what those stakes are. If you can do, you know, it's easier said than done because you have to have a story to advance towards. You have to have something worthy of these characters to achieve, and you have to present obstacles to them that really test them and really teach you about who they are. Right? That's Lord of the Rings. That's you know, hey Frodo, can you do this? You know, hey Sam, are you up to? You know, it's a story about loyalty, and even when you're in hell, will you give up on your friend? You know, like these are storytelling things that aren't going away. You know.
Yeah, and just to like make sure I wasn't crazy, I rewatched the trilogy recently, and yes, it nails it.
Yeah. You know, there was a screenwriting teacher a long time ago who told me, and this is going to sound kind of stupid, but I don't think it is, that every story kind of has to come down to life and death. Like, even stories that have nothing to do with life and death. In other words, there has to be something very human, very kind of like of urgent of the human spirit that has to kind of come out. Like, for example, you could argue, this is kind of a heady argument, but like a romantic comedy like When Harry Met Sally, like a super good romantic comedy, Meg Ryan, Billy Crystal. It's you know, it's like if this man and this woman can come together, then like it kind of means that like the race can, you know, the human race can propagate. You know, it's about like will we, you know, have family in the future? You know what I mean? Like there's something kind of underneath it. So I don't think so. Instead, J.J. Abrams thinks, no, you ask some question. You don't. The writer doesn't have to have the answer to that question readily available. Just intrigue the audience, tease them, with some question and then kind of make them wonder about the answer until you finally answer it. And as we know with JJ, the answer is never satisfying. Give me one time where the answer was like, oh wow, that was well played.
It's Sith Wayfinders. It's holding the blade up and putting it on the horizon. That's what this show is. This show feels exactly like that, where
Get the key. Yeah.
you get the key. It's like, oh, who is Sauron? Who is this? Who's that? And it never, when you answer the question, it never matters. Or they could have answered it immediately, and it would it's just
it's because it was
artificial.
It was only ever mechanical. Yeah, right. It was. Another way to talk about it is plot versus story. Plot is, you need a plot. That's the vessel for your story. That's what's happening. That's, and there's nothing wrong with MacGuffins. Like Guardians of the Galaxy, you're chasing after an Infinity Stone.
The ring of power is
the ultimate MacGuffin, right? Yeah, right. MacGuffin. So there's nothing wrong with having some plot that's like, we got to get the thing, but the story has to, that's about the characters and that's about their growth. And I'm not seeing like a lot of that here. The Harfoots in particular, if you could rate somebody's heart rate, if you could measure like negative emotion when it cuts from anything to the Harfoots, I think you would see like negative emotion spike like in just about anybody. It's a very like, not this shit.
Because they're very inconsistent. They're very frustrating because they like abandon their family, but they're like, I don't know, because they like abandon people. They have to like move, and so they feel a little heartless. But they're supposed to have hearts as big as these feet and stuff like that, and they don't make any sense.
It feels like the window dressing of a culture that they kind of invented something.
Yeah,
they invented too much. I bet you nobody. James Cameron said recently, he was like, of course we haven't seen the new Avatar yet, but he was like, I needed to make something like the Lord of the Rings, something, this like grand story. And he's like, but you can't really make Lord of the Rings until you've written these ridiculous books. You have to, filled with culture and story and lore and everything. And he's like, that's why it's taken so long, is we've gone back and written like the Lord of the Rings of Avatar, and now we're adapting that into a movie.
Yeah,
which I thought was kind of intriguing. And I feel like
I'm sure those movies will do great. He's unlocked the secret to like in enticing normies. Like he's got it.
All right, so it's all the story is like, when will Gandalf be Gandalf?
Yeah,
when will Sauron be Sauron?
We need to get the Mithril to save the trees. I don't know.
It's like, I only care if he's Sauron. And
did we need a backstory to Mithril? It's an ore.
I only care about who Gandalf is because I've seen some other movies. Like,
yeah, so it's typical, bad robot J.J. Abrams stuff where you have the mystery boxes that are resolved. They don't matter, and then they pepper in member berries as a reward. You get Mordor, Mount Doom, Mithril, Balrog, all of those things. It's typical.
Well, this article. So they said it's 5 criticisms. They're going to address the criticisms. Now, in proper journalism tradition, the criticisms are like not the criticisms. They're like criticism adjacent.
Are they like straw man criticisms?
Yeah. So like, if you were going to come up with 5, these would not be the 5. And they would not be phrased this way either. All right. First criticism. Elves don't have shaved heads or short hair.
Well, I've never heard this criticism.
It's made up. So the dude's answers are, if Tolkien ever wrote a comprehensive style guide to hairstyles in Middle-earth over its 1,000 years of history, I would love to see it. What an assy fucking remark from a guy who's begging you to watch his show.
Yeah, that's actually pretty shocking. I haven't heard anything about the hairstyles.
And then McKay says, part of the show is to go deeper and broader into each of these races and cultures, to say that any culture is rich and with long as a history of the elves would all have the same hair for 9,000 years. That doesn't seem to correspond and harmonize with the breadth of the imagination that Tolkien left us. So you're going to see that this is their move with everything. You introduce anything that you're like, why this? Or this is a weird choice or whatever.
Well, Tolkien never mentioned that this was in there.
Yeah,
so
it's either the Bible doesn't say anything about that. It's either that, like if Tolkien said that, I'd love to see it, or it's we just thought like Tolkien would think this was dope. I mean, just look at all this other shit he wrote. It seems kind of similar. It seems thematically similar. All right, here, on to the next one. Dwarf wives in the Rings of Power don't have beards. JD Payne says they actually do. It's not accurate. We looked at various versions of what facial hair on dwarf women might look like. There are beard hairs applied lovingly, one at a time, onto Disa actress Sophia Nomvetti, and there are these sort of mutton chops on the side. I would go further to say that Tolkien himself, if you study his entire body of work, has answered this particular question both ways. There's a very strong argument to be made that dwarf women should have beards, and a very strong argument to be made that they don't. We're happy with where we landed, which is what? To have them not have beards.
Have mutton chops.
We kind of went in between and got the best of both worlds by not having beards.
Again, this is like a superficial thing that I've never thought about. And I don't think I've seen people... And I go on pretty shitlordy message boards, and I haven't seen that.
I don't think once anybody's been like sitting through this boring-ass show and was like, my biggest problem is the dwarf women's beards. This one I like. The next two I love, actually. Galadriel acts too masculine, and she never went to Numenor. Again, I've never heard anybody say she's too fucking masculine.
She's like tiny. She's like
she's actually not. I don't think she's masculine at all in the show. Yeah. If I did hear somebody say that, I'd be like, no.
She's like a tiny petite woman.
Yeah. I mean, she's petulant, and
yeah.
And we heard back from people who were like, well, yeah, in elf years, in dog years, she's like 14 years old or whatever. And I'm like, it's not Grogu. It's not growing slowly. And isn't Elrond younger than her? Give me a break. Get the fuck out of here. Go back to TikTok, you stupid. Get out of here. All right, here's the have you ever heard anybody be like, she didn't go to Numenor?
Well, I mean, I can't say anything. I don't know anything about the lore, so she could have gone, fuck it, whatever.
Well, that's certainly their take. They're like, Tolkien never said she didn't go to Numenor. I would love to see in Tolkien where it says Galadriel never went to Numenor. That doesn't exist. Second, one of her nicknames is Nerwin, which means man maiden. And third, she does not act masculine. Well, wait a minute now.
Wait a minute.
She doesn't act masculine, but her name means man.
Big man.
So what is it? We're really happy with where we landed. Numenor. And then this other dude, McKay, says, also the name Galadriel is loosely translated in Elvish as a maiden with a crown of golden hair. So man maiden, golden hair maiden.
Yeah. It's
one of these. The reason she had a crown of golden hair is because when she would fight and do all sorts of sparring with other elves, she would braid her hair and put it on the top of her head to stay out of the way. So in the etymology is the idea that Galadriel is a warrior. Okay. Is he sure that he's licensed to say these things? Was this in the Silmarillion? Are you allowed to be saying this stuff?
I don't know.
All right, this next one is got to be my favorite. The costumes look too new.
I mean, I think they look pretty cheap. Like, they look like plastic.
Have you ever heard anybody say they look too new?
I don't think too new. I think this is stuff I've heard from from chatter. The man's breastplates have like man boobs. Like they look like they have saggy man boobs on the male chest plates. Their helmets look like they're made out of plastic. They like warp and flow in the wind.
Yeah.
Like their cheap Halloween costumes. What else have I heard? I think that's it. I think they just, you compare the two. It's hard not to compare it to House of the Dragon, but they just don't look like lived in or real.
Yes. Well, so I think that is what people are saying, and I think to interpret that criticism, they said it looks too new. So I certainly don't agree with that. No, I think we are always talking about a lived-in world, and we're always talking about adding breakdown to give costumes a more worn-in look. But also, that's not a bad shirt you got on. Is it new? I confirm my shirt is new. Guess what? Sometimes clothes are new.
Oh my god, that's like what I don't even.
Go on.
I don't even know.
Doesn't it just remind you of a total asshole?
Sometimes, we try to make it lived in, but sometimes sure it's like every answer. It's like the She-Hulk finale.
I hope that at the fucking end of this thing, in the next episode, it's AI Tolkien.
It's everything and nothing, those answers.
Fucking Durin breaks through the Amazon Prime streaming service and he's like, Arg! He's Chewbacca for some reason. And then finally, a criticism that actually, so this is number 5, that actually kind of strikes at maybe something you might hear from real human beings. The show's pacing has been too slow. And this is their answer to that.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, do I need to read the whole thing? They're going to say it's good that it's slow. Tolkien was slow. I hope that people can key in for the journey. Key in. Can we get any more corporate speak here, please? A lot of blockbusters.
Circle back, please.
We're going to circle back, key in, get some synergy across Middle Earth, just like Tolkien would have wanted. Okay, guys?
I did not see it, so maybe you would have wanted it.
If Tolkien didn't want us to key in, I would love to see that. A lot of blockbusters have a breakneck pace where you're wheeled from one set piece to the next until it all collapses under its own weight. Tolkien will take his time and let you sink into characters, into a journey, and journeys can be hard in Tolkien. I hope people will have the patience to settle in for a Tolkien epic of mystery boxes.
Boxes. Artificial.
In THR's The Rings of Power cover story, the duo conceded that some scenes in season 1 weren't as urgent as they could have been.
Weren't as urgent.
Wasn't as urgent as, we could have keyed more into that.
It's like, I mean, that was the thing about the original trilogy. You did have a sense of urgency, and they made that very clear with the ring wraiths coming toward Hobbiton. There was, the story, the looming threat.
Maybe could have been a little more urgent. There are things that didn't work as well in season 1 that might have worked in a smaller show, McKay said. It has to be about good and evil and the fate of the world, or it doesn't have that epic feeling you want when you're in Tolkien. This is their first time showrunners, bested dozens of possible rivals to get the job, creating the Prime Video series, with Amazon executives citing Payne and McKay's passion for and depth of knowledge of Tolkien's world. The two also acknowledged they learned a lot when making the massively complicated first season, that the show's episodes generally improve as the season unfolds. Have you found that as we're going on, it's getting better?
No, I thought it started off a little stronger.
Yeah.
I thought the best foot forward was the first 2 episodes.
Well, it's more like in the early episodes, there's promise ahead because you haven't seen the whole thing yet. But as you get closer and you're like, oh, this is all it is. Yeah. That's when you deflate, I think.
Yeah. And so it was, I think, especially once the volcano set off, it was the ridiculous Rube Goldberg machine that they had, where they had tunnels and they turned a key to make the water to bust a dam, and the water flowed into it and made Mount Doom. I was like, this is the most stupidest thing I've ever seen. The stupidest answer to a mystery box I've ever seen. A geological event was revealed to us.
Subscribe to Red Cow Entertainment on Patreon for full episodes every other week.